Hello friends, my name is Smriti Vasavda and today we are going to start with the second chapter, Incentives and Wages. Let us now move to the next and the last topic of the chapter, that is Theory of Wages. Theory of wages has various types of theory related to the wages of the workers in the organization. The first theory is subsistence theory of wages. This theory was elaborated by David Ricardo. It is based on two assumptions. The first assumption is there is a diminishing marginal utility that applies to each and every industries. The second assumption is there is a rapid increase in population. According to this theory, the wage in the long run tends to be equal to the subsistence level. By the word subsistence level, we mean the amount which is just sufficient for the workers to fulfill their basic needs. It is the minimum level of amount or the minimum level of wage that a worker needs to satisfy his basic needs. It is argued that if the wages of the workers exceeds the subsistence level, the workers would start getting married and they will start producing children. So here the demand side is completely ignored and a relationship between wages and marriages is formed. This theory has been criticized on various grounds, such as relationship between marriages and wages. It is incorrect to say that if the wages of the workers increases or if exceeds the subsistence level, the laborer would start getting married and will produce children. If the wages of the laborers exceeds below the subsistence level, they would start getting a good standard of living or start maintaining or improving their standard of living. So it is incorrect to say or state a relationship between marriages and wages. The second criticism is demand side ignored. As I said, in this theory, only the supply side has been considered and the demand side totally gets ignored. The wages are also influenced by the demand of the laborers. The next criticism is differences in wages. There is a wage differential among the laborers on the basis of their skills, the geographical locations, the region or industry. So here, this theory does not consider the wage differentials among the laborers. The next criticism is trade unions ignored. In this theory, the bargaining power of the trade unions is completely ignored. Let us now move to the next theory, that is wage fund theory. This theory was developed by J.S. Mill. According to this theory, part of the floating capital is set aside by the employer to pay the wages to the laborer. So therefore, wages is equals to total fund available divided by the number of workers. According to this theory, if the number of workers exceeds or increases in the organization, the wages tend to reduce and vice versa. And to give more wages or to give raise in the wages, it is very important to decrease the number of laborers in the organization. So therefore, if the fund is large, it would lead to an increase in the wages paid to the laborers and vice versa. There are various criticisms to this theory. This theory has been criticized on various grounds such as differences in wages. According to wage fund theory, the differences in wages is not considered among the laborers. There exists a wage differentials on the basis of skills, industry on the basis of region or geographical location, on the basis of personal characteristics, etc. The next criticism is demand factor ignored. This theory only considers the supply factor and not the demand factor, whereas demand is also the factor that influences the wages of the workers. The next criticism is existence of fund. According to this theory, there is a separate fund that is set by the employer to pay wages to the workers. But in reality, there is no separate fund. The wages are given from the profits or from the income that the company earns. The next criticism is objection on homogeneous labor. There is no homogeneity in the labor of the organization. All the laborers in the organization are heterogeneous. By the word homogeneous, we mean same or similar in nature. But there exists a differences in the laborers or in the type of laborers according to their personal characteristic, according to their skills, or according to the geographical locations. Let us now move to the next theory, that is marginal productivity theory. In this theory, wages are based upon the employer's estimate of the values that the additional worker would be contributing to the firm. This is based on the probability that the additional worker would be contributing so and so amount to the firm, which exceeds the cost of the company. In other words, it is totally dependent upon the demand and supply of the workers. So, as long as each of the additional worker contributes more to the firm as compared to the cost, it encourages the employer to continue hiring. This theory is based upon various assumptions. The first assumption is homogeneous factors of production. Factors of production are land, labor, capital, technology, etc. So it considers that all these factors of production are homogeneous in nature. Homogeneous means same or similar in nature. The next assumption is multiplicity of buyers and sellers. In this theory considers or assumes that there is a large number of buyers and sellers in the market, and these buyers and sellers cannot control the cost or wages of the firm. The next assumption is fixed factors of production. As I said, the factors of production are land, labor, capital, and technology. It assumes that all these factors of production are fixed in nature and it does not vary according to the situation outside the business. The next assumption is perfect knowledge. It assumes that each and every laborer has perfect knowledge or perfect skill of the work that he is doing in the organization. The next assumption is perfect mobility of the factors of production. This theory assumes that all the factors of production are mobile in nature. So there is a perfect mobility of the factors of production. The next assumption is profit maximization. It assumes that the sole purpose of each and every business or each and every organization is just the profit maximization. The next assumption is law of diminishing return. This theory has also been criticized on various grounds, such as employers offer wages less than the marginal productivity of the laborer. The marginal productivity of the laborer is the productivity that one additional laborer contributes to the firm. So according to this theory, the wages paid to that additional worker is below the marginal productivity that he produces or that he contributes to the firm. The next criticism is based on perfect competition. This theory assumes, or this theory has been criticized, that there exists a perfect competition in the employment market. Let us now talk about the next theory of wages, that is residual claimant theory. According to this theory, the workers or the laborers get what is left from the amount after deducting in the tax, the profit, rent, etc. So basically, according to this theory, labor receives the residual amount or the balance amount after the payment of rent, after the payment of tax, interest and profit. In short, wages is equal to the total amount or the total profit minus interest, minus tax, profit and rent. This theory has been criticized on various grounds such as supply influence ignored. This theory only considers the demand factor and not the supply factor. The supply side of the laborers completely gets ignored in this theory. The next criticism is role of trade. In today's competitive world, the trade unions plays a very important or vital role in bargaining the wages of the laborers. The next criticism is entrepreneur right. Basically, in real life situation, the residual claimant of this amount is the entrepreneur itself and not the laborer. All the residual amount or the balance amount gets transferred to the entrepreneur. The next criticism is case of loss. If the organization faces loss, the laborers or workers also have to face the loss and they do not get wages according to the residual claimant theory. Let us now move to the last theory of wages, that is bargaining theory of wages. Bargaining theory of wages is developed by John Davidson. In this theory, it assumes or it considers the bargaining power of the trade unions and the employers. Basic wages, fringe benefits, job differentials and individual differences can be determined by the power or the bargaining power of the trade unions and the organization. There has to be an upper limit and the lower limit of the wages. Bargaining theory wages has been criticized on various grounds such as it fails to determine or define the precise definition of the limits. This theory is not able or does not consider the precise definition of the limits. The upper limit is the limit which refrains the employer from hiring, because upper limit is the maximum limit of the wages that the employer has to pay, which leads to an increment or increase in the cost to the organization. And the last criticism is the lower limit is the limit which employer will refrain from work. So basically, lower limit is the minimum or the subsistence amount that the worker would receive to satisfy his basic needs. Therefore, the workers are not ready or they refrain from working in the organization. That offers them the lowest limit of the wages or the subsistence amount of wages. Thank you.